So when people ask me which speaker or subwoofer is suitable for them, I can't always give a straightforward answer. A lot depends on their preferences and budget, but one of the most important consideration is always the space in which the listening takes place and where the speakers are going to be positioned. Now, those coming to this channel for the first time, you won't know this, but I've been prototyping a Sonos Sub Mini stand for quite a while. I've been testing, and there's something important I need to share. Upfront summary for you: the stand unfortunately does nothing to the sound. Now, I've tested the sub and the stand together in a freestanding environment, meaning to say there's no obstruction around the subwoofer. It's not hidden under a console. It's not hidden under any cabinet, right? So I had hoped that the stand improves the bass response of the Sub Mini and it gives you more out of what you already have, but unfortunately, no. Now I'll show you the frequency response chart. It will show that nothing appreciable has changed in the lower frequencies for the Sub Mini. Now the Sub Mini is in a vertical position right now, and it shows up this purple chart here. Now this is focused on the frequency response from 20 Hz to right about 1 kHz. That's squarely the bass frequencies. The sub only impacts up to about 150 Hz or so, with a lower crossover point, I think about 120 Hz. But the sound waves do interact with the rest of the sound curve. So when I move the Sub Mini horizontally using this stand that I am prototyping, you can see that there's no appreciable difference at all. So this is the other chart that I have overlaid to it. There's a slight bump at the 500 Hz mark. Vocals cover a large range of frequency, right? So female a little bit higher, males a little bit lower, and 500 Hz is more of male vocals than female vocals. So this might have a little bit of difference, but it won't be anything you can hear. But I did learn something from this design process, which I've gone through for the Sub Mini stand. And the difference is it kicks in when you're able to move the sub into a corner or under a TV console or fit it into a tighter space. And I'll show you another chart. Now you take a look at this response charts right here. And I've just added a blue curve. The blue curve is for when I move the Sub Mini to stand vertically under a TV console. This allows you to have some bass reinforcement. So it does show that you get a free bass boost when you move the Sub Mini into a more confined space. So forget about this stand and forget about it trying to make a difference to how your sub sounds or perform. The stand has another job, and that is to open up the placement options that you have. So is the stand worth the money at all? Is the stand working in the first place? Now, sonically, there's no difference, as I've proven in the charts, right? The stand does have an advantage in the sense that it allows for more options to place the sub. Now, I had a TV console that wasn't going to fit the Sub Mini standing up, right? If you can see this video here. Now, it means to say I have to move it out into the open space, and that means less bass. But the moment you move it under the console, it comes to life, right? So with the subwoofer lying horizontally under the console, I tested the frequency response again. You will see from the orange curve that I'm going to put up here, there's very little difference from when the sub is vertically positioned under the console. It remains almost the same sound signature, but honestly, you won't tell much of a difference. Now, the best is that when you're able to angle the slot towards you, the listening position, well, then there is a slight difference in the bass department, but the change is really very small. The interaction actually happens further up the frequency range at about 500 Hz or so. The sub doesn't actually operate there, but the sound waves are actually interacting with the frequencies there and changes the way 500 Hz sound. Like I've explained earlier, this helps with the vocals just a little bit, but you won't tell a night and day difference. So I'm hoping if there are some sound engineers listening in to this show right now, maybe you can help me improve the product design. Did I miss something out? Why is it that how I imagine it to work is not working? It is not changing the sound profile at all, whether it's firing to the front or angling up or down or even firing the acoustic slot upwards. Right, so let's get back to the question. Which sub should you choose? Now you have to first look at your environment. If it is a big space, of course, go for the Sub Gen 3. If the space is small, go for the Sub Mini. Now, how small? I would say that the line is drawn probably at about 250 square feet or so. That would be about 20 feet by 12 and a half feet room. I would say give and take plus minus 10-20%. So between 200 to 300 square feet, that's probably when your decision point is going to be a little bit harder, choosing between the Sub Mini as well as the Sub Gen 3. Now, if you are still undecided and cannot afford both, then you have to think about which of the sub is going to give you more flexibility in placement. A well-placed Sub Mini can potentially outperform a badly placed full-size Sub Gen 3. Now, I'm going to draw a conclusion for sub placement. Now, always place a smaller sub in tighter spaces as opposed to freestanding spaces. If the sub is bigger, yes, good, right? But small subs, they have less power and need a bit more reinforcement from the surrounding, from the walls that are behind it. For the Sub Mini, it is a very capable sub, but physics, it still applies. I cannot change the laws of physics. You need to reinforce the bass notes by throwing them into tighter spaces. Now, if it doesn't fit, you have to find a way to fit it. How? So this is where the stand comes into play. So the only real use case for this particular stand here is to open up your placement possibilities. The Sub Gen 1 to Gen 3, it comes in at a height of 15.3 inches and it is 15.8 inches wide, but the thickness from the side is only 6.2 inches. So if you try to stand it up right, the footprint is just 98 square inches, but if it is too tall at 15.3 inches, you can just turn it on its side, lay it down, and you are just over 6 inches in height. You can shove it down into any TV cabinet, but just bear in mind that the full space that is required, the footprint required by the Sub Gen 3 on its side is going to be 15-16 inches squared, and that is going to land you in excess of 200 square inches. Now the Sub Mini is a much smaller sub. The Sub Mini comes in at a height of 12 inches, just 12 inches high, including the rubber stands below. And the diameter here is 9.1 inches across, which is about 23 centimeters across. Now this stand, when you place it on the side, okay, it does lift the Sub Mini about 1 inch off the ground. So it makes up for a total of 10.1 inches from the floor all the way to the top of the sub. And if you have a console that is very low, you don't want the air vent here, the acoustic slot to be firing there, you will shift it firing to the front. And in this dimension, it is going to take up a total of about 12 inches, because this is 12 inches and this side here is about 10.4 inches. So that's a total of about 125 square inches. So a little bit more than if the Sub Gen 3 was standing up, but definitely a lot less than when the Sub Gen 3 is lying on its side. So let's see. Conclusion. Why would we need the Sub Mini stand? As it is today, the stand itself has no visible effects other than 1. Aesthetics, 2. Giving you a few more placement options, and 3, maybe very slightly elevated vocal response, but you're not going to get a lot of sonic improvements from just adding the stand to your setup. Now, is it going to be worth the money? I don't know, because I don't know how much this is going to cost yet. If you're looking for pure sonic improvement, then any amount of money is too much for this stand because it doesn't work to improve the sound. So only if you are looking for a neat way of placing your sub in places that you cannot place them due to restriction in height, and if you need to lower it all the way down to about 10 inches, then the Sub Mini stand makes sense. But then again, it's not likely to improve your sound, so why would you want such a product to create the placement options? I don't know. Do you want it? Do you need it? Let me know down in the comment section down below. Now, if you want to learn anything more about Sonos products, do check out my other videos that I've created down here, and I will see you in one of those videos. I'll see you again.